So God just performed miracle after miracle after miracle to set his people free from their bondage to slavery. He's leading them by the hand into the wilderness, and on day one they start complaining. They start grumbling about lack of water, lack of food. And so here we're jumping into chapter 16 where God provides and also I think is helping them, lead them along like a father would lead a child. They're fumbling and they don't understand and they keep messing up, but he's saying, I got to teach you some new things about what it means to be human, what it means to be my people, because you were slaves in Egypt and you had your identity completely warped. So let's jump into this giving of the manna and what that actually says about who God is and who we are as God's people. Exodus 16:13 through 30. In the evening, a flock of quail flew down and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew all around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, there on the desert surface were thin flakes, as thin as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" They didn't know what it was. Moses said to them, "This is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Collect as much of it as each of you can eat, 1 omer per person. You may collect for the number of people in your household." The Israelites did as Moses said, some collecting more, some less. But when they measured it out by the omer, the ones who had collected more had nothing left over, and the ones who had collected less had no shortage. Everyone collected just as much as they could eat. Moses said to them, "Don't keep any of it until morning." But they didn't listen to Moses. Some kept part of it until the morning, and it became infested with worms and stank. Moses got angry with them. Every morning they gathered it, as much as each person could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the 6th day, the people collected twice as much food as usual, 2 omers per person. All the chiefs of the community came and told Moses. He said to them, "This is what the Lord has said. Tomorrow is a day of rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil, but you can set aside and keep all the leftovers until the next morning." So they set the leftovers aside until morning, as Moses had commanded. They didn't stink or become infested with worms. The next day Moses said, "Eat it today, because today is the Sabbath to the Lord. Today you won't find any in the field. 6 days you will gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will be nothing to gather." On the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather bread, but they found nothing. The Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to obey my commands and instructions? Look, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you enough food for 2 days. Each of you should stay where you are and not leave your place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day. So there's obviously more than we can really cover in this short time today. One, just as a reflection, I think this is a really important moment that comes up again and again, especially in the New Testament. For me, one, just a connection forward in Jesus' prayer that he teaches his disciples in the Lord's Prayer. Many of us know that. And one of those famous lines is about our daily bread. "Give us this day our daily bread." And this is most certainly the story that Jesus has in mind. We have a group of former slaves, and part of the rap of being a slave is that you don't get any breaks. They're going to be worked day and night, 7 days a week without any stops. And I kind of see this is a moment where God is teaching his people. They're like children coming out of their former life, learning a whole new way of being human. And one of those things is to trust in God for this daily bread. And so their time in the desert was a time of teaching, of learning, like God as this father walking his children by the hand. And one of the things was to say, we're not supposed to be people that are hoarding, that are trying to get one step up on someone else so that we gain more and more and more of the world's wealth while other people suffer and get less and less and less. In God's economy, and it kind of centers for me here, they went out every morning collecting this magical manna is the Hebrew word for it. It literally means what is it? We don't know what this is. Let's call it what is it? And some collected more, some collected less. But when they went back to measure it, it turns out that they had all collected exactly what they needed. That is the perfect picture image of God. Can I trust in you for my daily bread? Not for more than I ever need, so that I feel like I'm comfortable and safe. Not for less, so that I'm actually worried and hungry. But that, God, can I trust you that you can provide just as much as I need, morning by morning. The people, it's like they ran into this again like children, because they just didn't get it. It kept coming back again. Well, they said, well, okay, I'll save some leftovers. because I used to be a slave, and I used to not know where my meals were coming from, and I'm going to save some, and the next morning it would go away. It would become infested with worms and start to stink. Okay, but then the flip is on the sixth day, they gathered twice as much, right? And they were worried about that, and Moses says, no, that's exactly what God wants. And the next day, it didn't stink. So clearly there's something here. God is performing another miracle on top of the miracle, where on the first hand, this miracle food only lasts 1 day, but on the sixth day only, it lasts 2 days. And God is teaching them about rest, about Sabbath. Part of the daily bread that God is giving them is the ability to actually rest, to not be identified solely with what I do, with my work, but to actually be present with God and learn how to rest and take a break. And so we're supposed to, the idea of taking a Sabbath is built in to what God is teaching this group of former slaves as they're coming into their freedom, to say you're no longer defined completely by what you do. But even that, people don't get it. So they went out to try to find bread, and there was nothing on the ground. And so the Lord is rebuking them, but also walking them by the hand, like this loving Father that He is. And so there's a lot here, but maybe just taking all of this together to focus in on this idea of what does it look like for us to trust in God for our daily bread? How is that connected with the idea of actually taking a rest as well? We work hard, we trust God to give us what we need, and to not hoard it, to have this idea of God's economy where everyone should have what they actually need. And people don't have to have too much or too little. That seems maybe a little idealized, but there's something in there just to even reflect on trusting God for our daily bread. And connected to that is the idea of a Sabbath rest. Do we work our lives to the ground day after day, 7 days a week, or do we actually have a rhythm in our life to find rest and refocus before the next week? For me, one application this week is once again to connect the story of the manna and the giving of the bread to that famous prayer that Jesus teaches us to pray. Maybe take some time with Exodus 16, and it's found in Matthew 6 if you need it, but to spend time reciting through that prayer that Jesus taught us, especially that line, give us this day our daily bread. Where do I need to trust in God for my daily bread? Where have I been hoarding? Where have I been anxious? And what is this original story, which was the background for that line that Jesus taught us to pray? What does this story teach me about how I trust God, and how does that connect with my work, with my rest, with my trust in God for true provision?